Permits speak approximately Aaron Rodgers, Woody Johnson, and the New York Jets. This business enterprise has a number of choices to make with Davante Adams, Aaron Rodgers, the present-day head coach and a ultra-modern standard manager. But I want to start off with Woody Johnson. Woody Johnson has now not been an excellent owner over the past couple of years with the Jets. The New York Jets in principle must be better than 5-12. When you have a quarterback and Aaron Rodgers who is not the same participant that he was with the Green Bay Packers, but here remains serviceable at instances, you've got Davante Adams, Garrett, Wilson, Bree Hall, you will assume that this offense can, as a minimum, be ranked 15th on this league, and you will suppose, with the defense that they've had over the previous couple of years, this will at least be a playoff quality group. However, they weren't only 5-12 at the year. And I look at Woody Johnson, all the reports that have come out because Joe Douglas were given fired about him making quite a few decisions primarily based off of online game of soccer. They didn't trade for Jerry Jeudy due to the fact his Madden score turned into too low. That was crazy. Now I'm no longer going to come on right here and say it really is 100% proper. However, a lot of the reviews coming out about Woody Johnson did no longer get leaked out till Joe Douglas got fired over a month ago. And Joe Douglas, you could make the case, they did do him grimy, but at the equal time, Joe Douglas did draft Zach Wilson. Joe Douglas did deliver in Robert Saleh, and the New York Jets have underachieved on the offensive quit even before Aaron Rodgers. But once I take a look at Woody Johnson, he made lots of choices. This season, based off of emotions alone, I think it's exceptional for him to go out there and sit down with executive vice presidents with the New York Jets, sit down with the state-of-the-art general supervisor and spot what you want to do with this roster. Do you need to have a whole overhaul? Do you want to intestine this whole roster? What do you need to do? Transferring ahead, because right now, I can come on right here and say that it's very easy to transport on from Aaron Rodgers. However, who might their quarterback be for the following 12 months or two? Are you going to convey in a British quarterback like Sam Darnold? Do you need to deliver him lower back to the New York Jets? Have a look at what passed off with Sam D-No in the first. Pass spherical with the Jets. Now granted, Adam Gass was the pinnacle instruct and he turned into simply positioned to a horrible scenario. A horrific offensive line. However, you may say that approximately a variety of New York Jets quarterbacks. Study Geno Smith. They couldn't, well, broaden him. And look at Geno Smith now, with the Seattle Seahawks, he is a strong quarterback. You look. Zach Wilson, that entire test didn't training session. That is what has led to the Aaron Rodgers tenure so far with the Jets, because Zach Wilson did not training session. So now study Woody Johnson going accessible and firing Koala after the Minnesota Vikings game and not consulting with everybody else. That's a problem. He owns the group. He can do whatever the hell he needs. However, it might be great to exit there and at the least sit down together with your well-known supervisor and say, I'm frustrated and I need higher effects. Have to I hearth this train? What need do I do? But as a substitute, he went accessible and hecked it off of emotions. He fired Robert Saleh, and then a month later, he fired Joe Douglas. Now, you get into the Robert Saleh scenario at the time. I hated the move, and I nonetheless hate the circulate. I understand each aspects. When you're a head instruct, you take care of the whole crew offense protection special group's robust soul, changed into generating some of the quality defenses the league has seen. Over the last 5 years with the New York Jets, this guy had a better defense with the Jet than he did whilst he turned into a protective coordinator for the 49ers. The New York Jet protection changed into without problems. A pinnacle defense even when they had Zach Wilson as a beginning quarterback. Do you know the way hard it's miles to your protection who turned into on the sphere majority of the time to exit there and be dominant when your quarterback is Zach Wilson and he's turning the soccer over at the excessive clip, and it is a gaggle of 3. And out despite the fact that their defense turned into superb, Robert Strong should by no means discern out the offensive facet of the ball. He hired Coastal FL. Coastal Flow become a terrible offensive coordinator after they delivered in Aaron Rodgers. You can say that Aaron Rodgers had loads of say. So with the agency, but on the cease of the day, Woody Johnson, Joe Douglas, and Robert Saleh all got bullied by way of him, and they might have told him, "No, Robert." So went obtainable. He brought in Nathaniel Hackett, who has been a terrible instruct in this league, had a superb tenure with the Grand Bay Packers. However, study him with the Packers, he had Kosal. Floor, he become the top educate teach ground turned. Into going obtainable and calling the ones plays, observe the Grey Packers offense now. Look at Nathaniel Hackett without Aaron Rodgers, have a look at him while he become the top instruct with the Denver Broncos and the main offensive play caller. They fired him. After one season, Nathaniel Hackett is a roll train, and call handiest it truly is, it. I don't ever see Nathaniel Hackett going accessible and being a head instruct ever again, or even being a mediocre offensive coordinator. He's just horrible. And then you definitely had Ty Downing at the roster at the cease of the day. You could cater to Aaron Rodgers. However, Robert Saleh made those selections, and he were given. Fired due to it, I don't accept as true with the pass. I assume that. It became the wrong factor to do at the least permit him end out the whole season with Aaron Rodgers. He by no means got a honest danger with Aaron Rodgers. He did with Zach Wilson, Robert Saleh, and Joe Douglas. They love Zach Wilson, unfortunately. That didn't work out, and that led to them going accessible and making a change to usher in Aaron Rodgers. So I apprehend both facets of the fence with Robert Saleh individually. If it is me, I'll allow him finish out the season, and if they did not make the NFL playoffs, I'll push him out the door because sooner or later it turned into going to be time to move on from Robert Saleh if he couldn't parent out the offensive facet of the ball, and I take a look at the offensive coaches that he brought, that he introduced, and even as a strong fan, there's no excuse for it. It become horrible. However, after I look at Aaron Rodgers, this became a man that turned into, suppose that were available to be the franchise savior, the New York Jets have. Accomplished something similar like this before when they made the trade to usher in Brett Favre. Many years ago, they delivered in Brett Favre, and they have been going to try to go out there and make a run. Brett Favre become in a similar state of affairs as Aaron Rodgers. The Green Bay Packers traded him to the Jets, and that they had a younger Aaron Rodgers that turned into ready to start proper then. And there, Aaron Rodgers turned into annoyed with the Green Bay Packers he desired. To go out there and see them make a few movements at the extensive receiving position, but they did not. That they had a group of young extensive receivers, and they had plenty of fundamental drops at the, again, half of the season. They did appearance. Higher, I will by no means neglect the game that Christian Watson had against the Dallas Cowboys. 3 receiving touchdowns, but he did lose in opposition to the Detroit Lions. They pushed him out the door. In want of Jordan Love, he was very welcoming and encouraging toward Jordan Love, something that Brett Favre didn't do for Aaron Rodgers. He made him experience distant, and he was very cold towards Aaron Rodgers, and cause I deliver that up is because I'm going to enlarge on that point inside. The next couple mincho ever, Aaron Rodgers towards Achilles in 12 months primary with the Jets season, became already a wash. They ought to pass back to Zach Wilson, but this turned into supposed to be the season, too, in which they have been imagined. To exit there and make a Super Bowl run, you have got the important thing, guns on the outside with Garrett Wilson. You have got Allen Lazard, strong extensive receiver, whilst he is playing with Aaron Rodgers in his first YR with the Jets. He ought to barely find gambling time on the sphere all over again. Horrible coaching via Nathaniel Hackett, who coached him with the Green Bay Packers. Then they brought in Davante Adams proper when they fired Strong. And that first recreation. Towards the Steelers, you saw this wasn't going to paintings. This was a crew that become just on borrowed time. You simply have a group of veterans in this roster there now. Not going to work out. When I study Aaron Rodgers, the numbers this season aren't horrific. 28 bypass and touchdowns. Those are not horrific numbers for him to exit there and feature 28. Passing touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and he had the 8th most. Passing yards with 3, 897. Passing yards, you will assume it is a pinnacle. Sees quarterback at the least with this protection. However, that became no longer the case. This is why numbers can misinform you at instances. Aaron Rodgers, while it mattered. The most he became now, not top. He had a select 6 against the Minnesota Vikings in the sport that got Robert Saleh fired, and he had 3 interceptions in overall. In that matchup, he threw the sport-triumphing interception Aaron Rodgers did no longer seem like his former self, and that's very horrifying for the Jets if they want to maintain directly to him. He's not the equal quarterback that he once turned into. He's coming off there to kill those damaged plenty of fellows inside the media. They praise Pastor Mahomes because his capacity to transport outdoor the pocket and make a whole lot of crazy throws. That's what Aaron Rodgers used in an effort to do this. Man continues to be going to be a Hall of Famer. What I'm approximately to mention. Proper now is not going to discredit what he did inside the beyond. He is one of the first-rate quarterback capabilities that I've ever visible. We're going to examine Aaron Rodgers right. Now he is a shell of his former self, and he ought to surely be thinking of retirement because of the mindset off the sphere, the way that he rubs coaches the wrong manner. Robert Saleh went in for a hug. He extends his hand, and he says no longer yet. And then, just a couple weeks later, they fireplace Kosala. He has that near courting with Nathaniel Hackett, and he did have numerous strength with the New York Jets. Nathaniel Hackett become no longer the offensive coordinator. They did not fire him, they demoted him. He stayed with the roster, and they let Todd Dowie come in and get in touch with Plays, who was a horrible offensive coordinator with the Tennessee Titans. Typically, while you see coordinators get fired, you are not with the team. Nathaniel Hackett changed into, nonetheless with the team due to the fact he has a terrific relation deliver with Aaron Rodgers, and this goes into my discussion with the reality that Aaron Rodgers bullied Robert Saleh. He bullied Joe Douglas to basically say, "Hello, those are my guys, let them live at the roster." After which, when they fired Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas, and anybody else, they saved the men around. Now that got here all the way down to Coach Brick have become the interim head. Educate. And I do feel for him. This is a person that turned into a strong linebacker in this league. He's a former protecting coordinator. He's no longer ready to be a head teach. No longer just yet maybe in the destiny. But this man became now not a terrific intervening time head train. He had a number of issues managing the sport, misusing timeouts, no longer throwing mission flags. He just overlooked a variety of the simple things that head coaches should be capable of do. But once again, he ought to have in no way been in this case. But after they fired Robert Saleh, it's whilst you noticed Aaron Rodgers hold his pals round. However, when I look at Aaron on the movie, he nevertheless has a place in the league. He may be a serviceable quarterback for T that has a young quarterback that they may be trying to expand because he turned into so welcoming and so encouraging to Jordan. Love. Put the political stuff aside. Position the attitude aside. Off the sphere and on the sphere. Aaron Rodgers can give you proper play right here and there. He is not the same franchise quarterback that he as soon has become. However, he is now not a terrible quarterback. I can call worse starting quarterbacks than Aaron Rodgers right now. He can really exit there and assist a group. However, he has to go out there and humble himself because he has now not looked true. Over the previous few years, even in that closing season with the Green Bay Packers, you noticed him take a step back. That is still a person that has gained several MVPs in this league. He's going to nonetheless be a Hall of Famer. He's a Super Bowl champion. However, Aaron Rodgers desires to humble himself. And I'm saying all of this proper now about the Jets. Your quarterbacks on this roster besides Aaron is Tyrod Taylor, who came in towards the Buffalo Bills. They got crushed by way of the Buffalo Bills. Aaron Rodgers did no longer even position to landing up on this matchup. And in garbage time, Tyrod Taylor went available. He positioned some touchdowns at the board. However, you have Tyrod Taylor, you've got Adrian Martinez, the ones are your quarterbacks, and Jordan Travis. None of these men are going to be your franchise guy moving forward. And until you need to usher in a man like Sam Darnold, who was drafted with the aid of this business enterprise inside the first round, you push him out the door for Zach Wilson, you maybe deliver in a guy like Justin Fields. The quarterback marketplace proper now isn't appropriate. And I don't see the New York Jet going available and buying and selling for Kirk Cousins. It is not going to appear. They just traded for a quarterback. This is older, and he had Achilles' harm, and look how Aaron Rodgers looks now. And Aaron Rodgers is higher than Kirk Cousins proper now. So now study this case. It's not an clean answer for me to come back on here and say, pass off. Aaron Rodgers, simply allow him move. Who the hell goes to be their quarterback, and that they do not have a draft pick to go out there and select a guy like Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders, except they go with Carson Beck within the first round, which is a loopy reach. They may go along with Carson within the second or third round. However, is he going to be your guy on day one? That is a horrific quarterback magnificence. So do now not be surprised at the New York Jets strolling back with Aaron Rodgers. Now I suppose that the ship has sailed on that. However, they might probably bring him returned. This is why Woody Johnson has to exit there and sit down with a modern-day head, educate with a modern preferred supervisor, and allow them to run the show. It's Miles his crew, but we've got seen with the movements over the last few years, as long as Woody Johnson's going accessible and he's vetoing trades and he has overstepped the overall supervisor and he has more say-so than him, and he is no longer letting the general supervisor do his task. They'll never get everywhere due to the fact he's a horrible soccer mind right now, and I'm simply being sincere right here now. Take a look at the rest of the offense. You've got Garrett Wilson. It is able to be smoked to his fireplace. There's lots of reports coming out that he ought to request alternate. I wish it is now not the case. I'm not one of these fanatics that love to see players pass round to go into the court docket unquote higher state of affairs. He got drafted via the New York Jets. He is nonetheless a very good wide receiver. He put up superb manufacturing with Zach Wilson, in a bad offense with Cole Floor, and with Coach Hackett, there may be talent here with this kid. Now this season, he did take a step lower back, but he had over 8 receiving yards, a variety of that. It's because when he brought in Davante Adams, he became the DL quantity wide receiver. He's a real primary. He's dealt with awful offensive line play, bad quarterback play, and the chemistry became not there with Aaron Rodgers, which additionally opens up this communication. Aaron Rodgers wishes a show-up for schooling camp. It's so many stuff with him off the sector that are so disturbing. If you bring in a corporation, head teach like a Rex Ryan who they're interviewing, right? Now, I suppose that he will be harder than Aaron Rodgers, and he'll display up on the give-up of the day. You're an expert. You are a grown guy. You have to reveal up, and you need to carry out to the high quality of your capabilities. The coach can only do so an awful lot, but Aaron Rodgers has to locate that in himself. Does he absolutely care? Do you need to stay after exercise? Do you want to expose up before exercise? Get the work in with Davante Adams. Get the paintings in with Garrett Wilson. Exit there and construct that chemistry rather than going out there at the Pat McAfee show. It's a bad look. I hardly ever come on here and talk about what gamers do out of doors of football, due to the fact I genuinely do not care. But while your crew is getting their teeth kicked in repeatedly, and you're the Pat McAfee show, and you are comp, and you are complaining about leaks coming out of the employer, and the way we want to play higher. How about you take that time and you tell Pat McAfee, hey, I'm no longer going to come back on this week. It'll be a few trolls that say, Aaron did not display up this week because they were given beat horrific. That is a terrible look. However, on the identical time, it shows that you're going accessible, and you are trying your best to win on the sector. You need to be all in, and Aaron Rodgers may be 42 years, antique, subsequent 12 months, so he has to make his mind up with what he wants to do, but Pat McAfee cannot be the number one option. A pair days after the game, getting that chemistry right along with your coaches and getting that chemistry right along with your offensive gamers that need to be the primary precedents, and then you can go at the podcast shows whilst you're triumphing video games while you win a championship with the crew, but lower back to Garrett Wilson. When I observe Wilson, this child is outstanding. He had the trap of the year in opposition to the Houston Texans Thursday night football. There may be talent right here with him. I hope that he would not request a trade, and I hope that he's with the New York Jets a long time. They drafted him within the first round, and it is just a brilliant tale to exit there and pay your own talent, especially for a child that had dealt with suffering situations. I have a look at Davante Adams. He's nonetheless an excellent, huge receiver. He wasn't a Pinnacle 3 extensive receiver this season, but the expertise remains there with him. He's aging, however you can hold him round. When I take a look at the offensive line they brought in, Tyron Smith. Large mistake, whilst Tyron Smith is on the field. He is stable. He is no longer the identical address that he became with the Dallas Cowboys. He cannot end out of the season. And we noticed this 6 years in the past. He became an exceptional offensive lineman for decades. With the Cowboys, it is the knee accidents. It's the lower back accidents. It is the neck accidents. And I can tell you this from personal experience and seeing it from older humans when you're dealing with a neck injury. Back, a lower back damage, or knee damage, you'll never be the same. Mainly gambling, a high collision sport like football retirement may be subsequent for Tyron Smith. I look at Max Mitchell, he gave you solid snaps. This season, I'm now not saying he is going to be a franchise address. But I suppose there may be something there with him need to make bigger on his game. I assume that the extra snaps you supply him, he should become snug at the tackle role you brought in. Morgan Moses, he ignored time. He is a veteran, tackle. He now, not a horrific player to have around, he is a strong address. Your offensive line continues to be a hassle. You have got Elijah, Vera, Tucker, strong player. The factor is this with Elijah Vera Tucker, he's double such a lot of injuries inside the past. You need to make investments, a whole lot of cash in him shifting forward. You've got okay pieces at the offensive line, however they may be. Nonetheless, no longer genuinely elite because your offensive coaching has been so horrible, and we have seen this with other groups throughout the league. When you carry in the right offensive portions and that training team of workers, it can make a hell of a distinction. There may be no manner, and I refuse to agree with this. There's no way this Jess crew must have went 5-12 with the expertise that with Davante Adams, Garrett Wilson, Bree Hall, and you've got Brayan Allen at the running backs at their respective positions within the strolling again room. There's no way, and you have a veteran quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. They had been jogging the soccer extra to take the pressure off of Aaron Rodgers. There was no longer a number of responsibilities within the offensive line room. This became just a mess. On the education personnel the front. And yet again, I can blame Woody Johnson for that. However, who introduced within the offensive coaching workforce, Robert Saleh, did fall underneath him, and they had offensive problems before Aaron. Rodgers, you cannot blame that on him. You can't blame Mr. Simons up the front on Aaron Rodgers. He is moving protection. Aaron Rodgers been inside the league forever. The man has WMVPs, and he is need a Super Bowl. He knows unique seems he is aware of. Unique blisses when a address isn't picking up a bliss off the proper aspect when they're lacking a stunt in front of them, and he's getting the play blown up in his face. That is, son of Aaron Rodgers, the interceptions. Certain, however, the drop passes. The reality, they couldn't prevent the run, and their defense took a prime step again. Once they fear Koala. This is now not an errand. I feel like Aaron Rodgers gets plenty of needless hate due to the fact his mindset and manner that he acts closer to the media. However, a whole lot of this stuff became out of his manipulate that he need to be coached with the aid of Nathaniel Hackett. Sure, that is on him. However, all over again, when you are a coach, you could tell a player you understand. What? No, I'm the coach here, permit me do my process. You do your job, as it's a massive distinction from me, looking the sport on TV from Aaron Rodgers playing the sport, and from Nathaniel Hackett, Koala, whomever. Education the game after I observed the first-rate gamers inside the NFL which have went out there and performed, how many of the ones guys have went over to become coaches, and that they were elite coaches within the league. And that is for any sports league in basketball. You could call some in football. It is not that many, and I'm talking approximately top quit players. Some of them don't even need to exit there. And coach, they visit the front workplace. So now have a look at Aaron Rodgers. You may save him from himself and say, "Hey, Nathaniel Hackett, I'm now not bringing him in. You can speak to him." Off the field, you can consult with him inside the off-sea. However, from the gadget I like to run, he is no longer going to be around, and I understand that that can deliver in a poisonous element. If he desires to be toxic, you can move off of him due to the fact, the way which you're speculated to run your organization. Nobody is bigger than the company. No person ought to be larger than the New York Jets emblem, and it kind of permit Aaron Rodgers' head get a touch bit big, and I blame that on the coaching team of workers and the fact that they failed to subject him in perhaps a train like Rex Ryan could or available in, and alternate all of this. However, it'll take a lot. It'll take for Woody Johnson to step aside. Additionally, when I take a look at this protection, their protection continues to be stable. You have S. Garner did take a step again this season, but he is nevertheless a very good football participant, and I know that loads of human beings are wondering his heart proper. Now because he ignored the game, the closing game of the season, that he was completely checked out, I'm now not going to impeach his effort. I visible him in the past be one of the exceptional quarterbacks in the league. I suppose it was only a terrible year. The fact which you saw, your head instruct get fired in your smartphone, no person notifies you, and he failed to even get to have a goodbye assembly that announces plenty, and that is a big impact on the player, and he had to close. Relationship with Saleh off the sector, yet again, be a professional, but at the equal time, Woody Johnson. You can at least let the person exit there and say goodbye to his crew as an alternative of having security escort him out. But when I take a look at S. Garner, I assume that he might be first-class transferring forward. You've got DJ Ree, you have got M. Michael Carter, the second. Their passing defense is ideal. They had been the fourth first-class Indiana this year. You've got Will McDonald, who had 10.5 of sacks at the 12 months Jermaine Johnson were given injured early inside the YR. I assume Jermaine Johnson has capacity to be the exceptional pass rusher with this organization. Him and Will McDonald, they have a bright future. On this league at the honor at their respective protective quit positions, you've got Javon Kinlaw, awkward suit without Koala, because he helped draft him with the San Francisco 49ers. In principle, he might training session thoroughly along Quinn. Williams, however, while not having a head teach, there could have. Without having that presence, I don't know approximately his destiny with his agency. You have got Quincy Williams, excellent linebacker. He's the brother of Quinnen Williams. This isn't a nepotism component. This child is only a directly baller on the linebacker spot. Just an excellent participant. The have, he's a valid tackler. Excellent in coverage. Also, I like this game. Loads. Now take a look at C.J. Mosley. You may flow on from C.J. Mosley. Missed time this 12 months handling a toe injury. He's no longer the identical linebacker that he once turned into even last season. He's taking a step lower back. Lots of it could be, because Teach Brick changed into the interim head. Educate. He wasn't equipped for that spot. He must simply stayed the defensive coordinator, but at the same time, the accidents do problem me. And the reality that he is getting old. With all that being said, I assume the New York Jets may be in a terrible state of affairs, as long as Woody Johnson is setting his nostril in business. If Woody Johnson wants to go out there and be the overall supervisor and the owner just say that Jerry Jones does it with the Dallas Cowboys. However, have a look at the dearth of achievement the Dallas Cowboys have had over the past decade. Plus, I need to see the New York J be accurate. My entire adolescence, I noticed Tom Brady go out there and time and again win this division and go to the Super Bowl. And while the Patriots have a down year and they're basically W of the worst groups in the league over the last few years, the New York Jets cannot capitalize. You received one greater game than the New England Patriots with way extra expertise that asserts plenty. Approximately the ownership, and it says loads about the education with this roster. And you also have the Buffalo Bills in this division. This turned into supposed to be a rebuilding YR for the payments, and they won this division. And you've got the Miami Dolphins with Tua, who's suffering to live healthful. so the door could be wide open for the Jets, but they must make the right decisions. And it starts off evolved in the front workplace while they convey in standard manager, and they create of their head, educate, we're going to get greater readability on this case. But, and I know I've come on right here inside the beyond, I've made my jokes approximately Aaron Rodgers, I've made my jokes about the New York Jets. I do sense horrific due to the fact with all of the hype that they'd this season, hell even remaining. A season earlier than Aaron Rodgers, closer to a kills, it turned into a laugh to watch how New York Jet fanatics had been interacting. Due to the fact they wanted to exit there and notice their group win, that they had excessive hopes after which when you saw them lose against the Steelers, all of the Jets fanatics threw their arms up and that they were just finished with the organization. However, this all begins with Woody Johnson. Woody Johnson has achieved a whole lot of bad matters with this organization, and to just see the quantity of quarterbacks that simply stroll inside and out of that door is thought-boggling, and I also marvel about Zach Wilson long-term. I assume that Zach Wilson may want to likely get another chance in the league after I observe Sam. Or I look at Geno Smith, I scratched my head and say, was I absolutely incorrect approximately this child? Because even popping out of college, I wasn't the largest Zach Wilson fan. I thought they made a huge mistake choosing him within the first round when I have a look at Zach Wilson compared to the opposite quarterbacks. He looked just as awful. Maybe he can visit a distinct group with better training, but I cannot emphasize this sufficient offensive education, especially in cutting-edge sport, could make a hell of a difference. However, let me understand inside the remarks segment below, what must the New York Jets need to they keep Aaron Rodgers? Or need to, they absolutely start over and bring in a modern-day quarterback. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you want the video, hit the like button, most significantly, while each remaining one among you men live secure, say, effective, thanks for the video, guys. God bless.